Assalamualaikum to our lecturer, Dr. Rosmi Yuhasni. We are from BA2434L. Today we would like to present the chi-square hypothesis test and two sample t-tests. As per shown, here is the data from 30 UC degree students from class BA2434L that we have read. In the data, we have included the gender and education level, which is STPM, foundation, and diploma. Besides that, our sample came from 20 female and 10 male students. Apart from that, we also include the spending allowance for student per week. Without further ado, we will explain the first topic, which chi-square hypothesis test. The question is analyze whether gender and category of education level are related by referring Chapter 5 Non-Parametric Method Chi-Square Test. For this topic, we will use two data, which is gender and education level only. First step consists of two hypotheses, which is HO and H1. As for the symbol, HO explains the category are independent, which is no relationship. Meanwhile, for H1 indicate variables that are independent, which is related. From the data that we have identified, the HO, there is no relationship between gender and education level. Meanwhile, for H1, there is relationship between gender and education level.
Moving on to second step. On this step, we will use 95% significant level and 5% for sigma. Step 3 is analysis. What we need to do is go to Excel feature, click Insert, choose Pivot Table. After that, choose the data that we want to analyze. Select a range from the data, which is gender and education level. Choose where you want to put the pivot table report to be placed. Then click OK. Now, what we need to do is classify the data by drag gender at row and education level at value and column. Then it will show like this. Under our step 3, there will be 3 types of table. I will begin with explain the observed frequency table. For this table, we just copy and paste back the data from the pivot table data. The grand total is 30. Then, we move to the second table, which is expected frequency table. The formula that we use is grand total row times grand total column divide total number observed. Next, the formula for chi-square value is power, open bracket, bracket again, observed frequency minus expected frequency, close bracket, comma, power 2 divide by expected frequency. Make sure the amount of grand total for observed frequency and expected frequency are same.
Moving on to the step 4, which is decision making. For this step, we need to calculate significant level, degree of freedom, chi-square critical value, and p-value. For the significant level is 0.05. For the degree of freedom is based on provided 2 data. The formula for degree of freedom is row minus 1 times column minus 1, which is 2 minus 1 times 3 minus 1, and enter. You will get 2. To calculate chi-square for critical value, we need to insert equal, then put Excel formula chi-square.inv.rt. Then choose sigma level and degree of freedom. Enter. Meanwhile, for p-value, the formula is chi-square dot test, and then select all female and male from observed frequency table, and select all female and male from expected frequency table and enter. For critical value approach, the chi-square amount is 0.126 from grand total chi-square value. As for the critical value, the amount is 5.99, where we take it from chi-square critical value. Based on the observation, the chi-square value is less than critical value amount. As the chi-square is not in rejection region, so we fail to reject HO. Moving on to the p-value approach, the p-value is 0.939 based on the calculation before, and the sigma is 0.05. As p-value is bigger than sigma, we fail reject HO. Now, let us move to the last step, which is step 5 for the conclusion. Based on the all analysis above, there is a sufficient evidence to suggest that there is no relationship between genders and education level. Education level is actually not depending on gender. That's all for chi-square.
Now, let's take a look at the second topic, which is two-sample t-test. The question is, using the Excel file BA244L student survey, determine if the mean amount of spending allowance per week is the same for males as it is for females by using unequal variance. For this question, we will use gender and spending allowance data from the Excel file BA244L student survey. We need to sort out the gender to classify the female and male. So, choose gender, then click OK. After finish, begins with the first step, which is hypothesis, where we identify the HO and H1. The key that we can find from the question is the same for males as it is for females. So, we need to use equal symbol for HO and non-equal symbol for H1. Moving on to the second step, we will use 95% significance level, whereas the sigma is 5%. Next, for the third step is analysis. We need to click data and go to data analysis. Then choose t-test to sample assuming unequal variance from the option. For variable first range, we include the spending allowance for female only. Whereas the variable for second range, we use spending allowance for male only. Make sure do not tick label and alpha is 0.05. Then we can choose any range to put our data. Here is the data of t-test to sample assuming unequal variance.
Next, I will be continue explain on the stat 3 analysis. So this is the stat 3 analysis, which is in here there will be 3 data that will be used, which is the first one is t-stat, second is p-value to tail, and third is critical value to tail. The reason we choose to use to tail is because of our hypothesis we are using equal, which means to tail. And moving forward on this step 4, decision making. Under of this decision making, there will be 2 approach, which is the first one is critical value approach and second is p-value approach. For the critical value approach, we need to make comparison between t-test with the critical value. So our t-test here is 1 and the critical value is 2.06, which means the t-test is less than the critical value. So in order for us to know does this data fail to reject HO or not, we need to draw the bell curve graph. So we have provided the bell curve graph over here. Since our hypotheses are using two-tail, therefore this graph represents for the two-tail data, which means the data will be appear on the right side and also the left side. As can be seen here, the t-stat, which is 1, in the non-rejection region. Therefore, we can say that it is failed to reject HO because the t-test was not in the rejection region. And moving forward on the p-value approach, where we need to make comparison between p-value with the sigma. So the p-value here is 0.33 and the sigma is 0.05, which means the p-value is bigger than the sigma. Therefore, we fail to reject HO, which is same as in the critical value approach just now. And lastly, step 5, which is conclusion. We can conclude that there is sufficient evidence that the mean amount of spending allowance by female and male is similar. So that's all from us. Thank you.